I am going to be reading today's story on vanishing cultures. This week we've been doing an author study on Jan Reynolds. You guys have read stories all week long, or you've had stories read to you by your other teachers by this awesome author and wilderness photographer. A little backstory on Jan Reynolds. This series, she has tried to capture people who live in these places that are vanishing. You guys have read about a few books that she's had: Himalayan mountains, the Amazon basin, the Canadian Arctic, the Sahara Desert, and then this one, which will be on Finnmark. You've maybe never heard of Finnmark. It's almost as far north as people are willing to live or can survive on Earth. So our hope today is that you will be able to find some connections between all of these books this week, and also connect it to your own life as well, and the culture that we have here in Detroit Lakes or that you live in. So, real quick, the people that we're going to be learning about today are the Samis people, and the Samis live in a land of the far north called Finnmark, or Lapland, where the sun can sometimes shine all day, and even during the night in the summers, and in the winters, the sun sometimes never comes up. So imagine that. Imagine what that would be like to have some days where the sun never sets, and then others where it never shows itself. I imagine that would be quite different on both spectrums. For thousands of years, the Samis have followed the migration of the reindeer across the plateaus and up into the mountains in the summer, then back down to the plateaus in the winter. Following the natural cycle of the seasons, they believe that nature will always care for them. So we're going to be learning about that portion today, and then we're also going to kind of talk about how this ancient way of life is disappearing as new roads and towns have changed the landscape. And that's where we kind of build that connection of vanishing cultures. So let's begin the story. As you can see, this is the cover, Far North. And I should be able to just click here and we go to the first page. Now, I'm going to apologize first right away. I know the pictures didn't come in super clear. Try your best to just listen, follow along, and when we'll just go from there. Okay, we'll do our best today. There's a place in the far north where the sun can stay up in the sky all day and all night. It is called the land of the midnight sun. In the chill of the evening, when the sun hangs low, Sarah and Carrie, two Sami girls, draw closer to the fire as their mother begins to tell them a story. Like all Samis, she lived her life close to the rhythm of the land and animals, following the circle of the changing seasons. In the warmth of summer, when the sun shone all day and night, life was good in the mountains. But in the dark cold of winter, when the sun sometimes did not rise at all, she and the reindeer would return to the lowlands where the winter was more gentle. Long ago, your grandmother followed the reindeer as they traveled up into the mountains for the green summer grass in the high pasture. The Sami shaman seems to be the first to know when the season will change. The shaman believes the trees, rocks, and water all around have their own spirits. And with the help of his drum, he talks with these spirits to find answers for the Samis. Soon, Sarah and Carrie are fast asleep. It's early spring, and Sarah and Carrie's father is out rounding up the family's reindeer. Like their grandmother, Sarah and Carrie will travel with the reindeer up into the high mountains. The next day, while the girls wait for their father to return, Carrie gathers small berries as a treat for the family. After gathering the fruit, she hangs reindeer skins out to dry. Reindeer are the center of Sami life. Their hides are used for clothing and blankets, their meat for food, and they pull the sledges the Samis ride across on the snow. The Samis also drink the nourishing liquid from inside the reindeer's bones. Then they carve the bones to make spoons, needles, and other things they need. Are you guys realizing that the Samis, they really utilize the entire reindeer, don't they? Think about what parts of the reindeer they've used in just these first few pages. It says they drink, or obviously they have clothes, blankets from the hides. They eat their meat for food. The reindeer pull them on their sledges, which would be like a sled. The Samis also drink the nourishing liquid from inside the reindeer's bones. And then they carve the bones and they make spoons, knives, and other things they need. It sounds a lot about tales we've probably heard about with the indigenous or Native Americans many years ago, and how they wouldn't use reindeer, but what did they use? They would use buffalo, or what were they called? There's another name for buffalo. Bison, is that it? All right, so let's keep reading. When their father arrives, the girls help their mother take down the lavo, their simple tent, and get ready for moving to the mountains. Carrie is happy to see her favorite dog again. He is very good at herding and always goes with Carrie's father to gather the reindeer. When the reindeer are rounded up, they must be fed. Sarah and Carrie set out some hay for their father to take to the herd. While the girls are busy, their father goes to get a sledge to carry the hay on. Although the sun is still up, it is nighttime. After helping her mother and sister pack their belongings onto the sledges, Carrie falls asleep on an empty sledge. The family will begin moving later in the night, when the sun is even lower and the air becomes colder. Then, as the snow freezes harder, the sledges will slide faster and more easily. While Carrie and her sister sleep, their father takes hay out to the reindeer to eat. During the winter, when the reindeer are allowed to roam freely, they eat lichen, a small plant they dig up from under the snow with their hooves. After the reindeer have eaten, father brings in the strongest ones to harness to the sledge. It is time to begin moving to the mountains. Carrie and Sarah like to ride with their father, listening to him yoinking, singing traditional Sami poetry. Now, I don't know if you guys have thought about this while you're listening, but the Samis people use the reindeer like I've seen other people use different animals here, even in Minnesota. I'm looking at this picture here with you guys, and this reindeer is pulling the sledge, which is like a big toboggan almost, or just a sled. And what animals do we use to do that? I'm even thinking of like dog sledding. It almost looks like a giant dog sled, but I imagine that a reindeer is that much stronger than just a single dog. And then I'm also thinking about all the other, the other ways. I've been thinking of, obviously, the horses, or cattle, how they are able to herd them and kind of keep them And they use dogs to herd them, kind of like dogs would herd sheep almost, or cattle. So it's just kind of cool how the one animal, the reindeer, really guides their life, like many animals around here. Occasionally, they stop to let the reindeer rest and graze where the spring sun has melted away the snow. As they follow the herd, their father reminds them of what Samis have always believed, that nature will care for them as it does all living things. The traditional Samis look forward to living high in the mountains for the summer. Some will stay in the guoti, a hut, instead of the lavo. After the snow melts, all the different families' reindeer herds will graze together in a high pasture. The animals will the animals will grow strong and healthy, which will help them through the long winter to come. By the end of summer, the adult reindeer will have shed their old antlers. They will have soft new ones covered with velvet, a fuzzy skin that falls off when the antlers become hard bone. Along with their new calves, they will be herded into a larger corral. This is when the calves earn I'm sorry. This is where the calves' ears are marked. I'm learning all this stuff with you guys. This is really cool. When we were at Egg in the Classroom, there were some animal owners, there are farmers there that marked ears. I'm thinking of one, I believe it was the cattle, and I think they even did something with pigs as well, where they mark them in their ears. And I think we mentioned that because the cartilage is there and they can hardly feel it. And so it's also a way for them to be able to mark which one would be theirs. So I'm guessing they do the same thing with the reindeer. They mark their ears so they're able to tell which reindeer would be theirs, especially if there's a whole bunch of different families. It would make sense that they would want to find their reindeer, especially once the summer is done and they all follow the reindeer back down. All right, keep going. Each Sami family has its own mark, and the children in each family have their own marks too. These ear marks are important. Each family will use them to separate its reindeer from all the rest when it's time to leave the mountains and travel back into the lowlands for the winter. Sarah and Carrie can spot their family's animals from a distance. While Sarah helps her father, she points to a lone reindeer and asks Carrie to check the ear marking. Carrie calls back, "This is your reindeer, Sarah." Before Sarah and Carrie reach the mountains and high pastures, there is still more traveling to do. Mother has already gone ahead with other Samis to prepare the lavos as a resting place. While the girls are helping their father with the reindeer, their mother gathers wood for the fire and makes a pot of stew. She knows her family will be hungry when they arrive. Like Carrie and Sarah and their family, other Samis are also herding their reindeer to the mountains pastures. As the different families arrive, they begin to gather for the big spring celebration. Every year the Samis celebrate to the end of the long, cold, dark winter. They dress in beautiful woolen and deerskin clothes covered with decorative hand-woven braids. Everyone is happy. The spring celebration is a time for friends who haven't seen each other for a very long time and talk and laugh together. There are games too. Over his shoulder, father carries his favorite blue lasso, a special rope used to catch reindeer. He will compete against others in a contest to see who can throw their lasso the best. Sarah and Carrie make their own game. They turn in circles to see how far they can spin their skirts out, laughing as they make themselves dizzy. But the most exciting part of the celebration is the reindeer race. Both men and women compete together, and Sarah and Carrie's mother is going to race this year. She carefully checks her sledge to make sure everything is ready. Far out across the snow, the Samis race their reindeer. It is hard to tell who is winning at first, but as the racers get closer, it looks like a young man might win. Then suddenly Mother's reindeer bursts into the lead and crosses the finish line. Carrie and Sarah are happy their mother won the race. They are very proud of their strong reindeer, and to be Samis living in the far north. All right, guys, that was a nonfiction story written again by Jan Reynolds. This is the fourth book you've listened to or followed along with this week. So here's what I'm going to have you guys do. We're responding to the text, and you'll be doing this on Seesaw. If you want to follow along with me on this page, you can. So you've listened to and responded to now 4 books written by the same author, all about cultures around the world that are vanishing. You've likely noticed that these cultures, though drastically different, have many similarities as well. So here are the 3 questions that you are going to be answering today. The first 2, you're going to have to think about both of them, but they're going to be you can finish them relatively quick. The third one is going to take a little more thinking. And actually, my face is covering the third one right now, so I don't even know if I can read all of it, but I'll try. So the first question, what is one similarity between a culture that you read about in a book this week and the culture that you live in? So think back to the 4 books that you've listened to this week, and what is one similarity that a culture has that you also have in our culture that we live in here in Detroit Lakes? The second question, what is one difference between a culture you read about this week and the culture you live in? Now, I could find about 50 differences in that book that I just read. I think this one's going to be relatively easy. I think you guys can do this one. A difference between a culture that you read about and the one that you live in here in Detroit Lakes. And the last one, I'll see if I can remember what I wrote, because there's something in the bottom of my screen over here as well. So, okay, the author, Jan Reynolds. If the author, Jan Reynolds, were to take an interest in you and your family, what would she write about? What type of culture do you and your family live in? What are some things that she would write about? What are some things that she would say? What are some traditions you have? What's unique about yourself and your culture? That third one, it's going to be a little bit trickier. And I'm actually going to give you, I'm going to put this on one of the lined papers on Seesaw so you can type a little bit more. If you would rather write and then take a picture of your writing, that's perfectly fine too. But we do want to get you guys writing a little bit more on Seesaw. And so this is an opportunity for you to do that. So again, the third question, if Jan Reynolds, the author of the 4 books that you listened to this week, took an interest in you and your family and your culture that you have in Detroit Lakes, where you live, what would she write about? What are some neat traditions that you may have? What is unique about your situation or your family? What would she have to say? All right. That concludes today's lesson. I'm sorry for looking down at the book the whole time. I'm going to try to do something different next week, but hopefully this worked out for you guys. Have a great end of your day. And now you have a 3-day weekend. And I don't know if your weekends look any different than your weekdays, but you guys have an awesome break. Happy Easter. And we will see you again on Monday. All right. Bye-bye.